Christine Marie, and I am so thrilled to be talking about a topic, frankly, that needs to really be addressed squarely: the relationship of AI and authenticity. And a lot of folks are finding that they're sacrificing authenticity for the sake of AI-driven content and content creation, and we're seeing that more and more across social media channels, across even our devices, that are just showing up in terms of the ads. There's so much that I'm seeing where I'm like, is that real? And so I want to talk with the AI king himself and international speaker, Jonathan Mast, author, community host, and guide. Y'all, he is doing such incredible work in the AI world and has a community to show for it. And so, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this very important discussion.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to join the conversation.
I'm excited too. And Jonathan, you and I have spoken on different panels in the past, different cohorts, so to say. And then we officially met about a month or two ago. And Jonathan, I really am curious to hear your thoughts. I actually pulled up your website, and this is kind of what sparked the conversation in the green room. Was on your website, you've got this adorable, I think he's really cute. You've got this little man, and I'm actually going to share my screen so that people can see what I'm talking about. You've got this little AI guy, and I really, really love him. He's approachable, he's likable, love the animation. But when I asked you, is he a part of your plan for content creation moving forward, where you're going to use him to be distributing content? And you said no. And I'd love to really lean into why that is.
No, and I think it's a great question. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the imagery, and we do, our brand is kind of known for that 3D cartoon style imagery. And so, we did a play off the white beard and the glasses and all that. He's a little bit not quite as heavy as I am. So, I got to lose a little weight to keep up with him, but that's all right. The thing for me really boils down to authenticity, and especially when we talk about video creation and that type of thing. So we use images like that as part of our social media posting. We obviously have it on our website and all that, and I think it's fun and it's great. But I think, at least for me, even though I love the AI, when we cross over into the video world, things change. And the reason for me that they change is really about trust. When I'm doing videos, whether that's a video sales letter or just a review on the latest mess up that OpenAI has done with ChatGPT, I want to make sure that it's authentic, and I want to make sure that you're hearing it from me. I have some trusted peers in the industry that use AI video and have done that well and get millions and millions of views. I just personally struggle with that authenticity. If I'm doing that video and I'm sharing that with you, I want you to know it's me. I don't want you to think, oh, it's just something that Jonathan's team put together. Does he even know it's out there? No, it's actually me doing that, just like we are right here. So for me personally, at this point in time, we've made the decision that when it comes to video in particular, that video will be me, and it'll be live. And that means I'll do less video than some of my peers will, because they've got teams that can pop out multiple things per day because of their AI avatar. And that's great. I have no problem with that. I have no issue there. But again, for me personally, sales is about trust. We buy from people we know, like, and trust. And I want to make sure that I'm never jeopardizing that trust aspect by putting forward something that's not me as it relates to that. And I think it's one thing, yes, AI helps me write my social media posts. It's my idea. AI helps me write it. I proof it and post it. That's one thing. But when I'm coming to you personally, and video is much more personable, I think that for me, at least, I'm going to stick with that.
I love it. That's so helpful. And I want to even back up even what you were saying, like, that's not right for me, but it's right for other people. How do you determine what is right for you in terms of the tools that you would use to effectively get your message and your content out into the world? Like, do you have any kind of guiding questions, or what is the guidelines that you use in order to make that decision?
For me, it's really authentic content. Again, I can use social media that I've trained, or I can use AI to write my social media because I've trained it, and I'm still the one coming up with the ideas. I'm not, my team doesn't go, okay, here's your social media posts for the week. I'm starting off, I get ideas, I use tools to do that heavy lifting. Because, good example, I was at a mastermind in Nashville last week, and during that mastermind, a number of people had great one-liners. I'm like, "Ooh, that's good. That's great. I want to take that somewhere." And normally I'd write that down and I'd never get back to it. I'd never deal with it
Yes.
because life would happen and it would never do it. Instead, while I was there, I went into Google Gemini and loaded up one of my gems. It's like a custom GPT that I have trained to write posts the way I want to write them in my tone and style. And I would give it those concepts and it would then give me some draft posts and I would take a look and pick the ones that I liked. Now that the content was done, it was much easier to post later at dinner or during break or whatever, and I could actually do more than I could. The and to me, it's still very much authentically me. I'm the one who's posting it.
Yes.
I always tell people, they're like, I saw you posted this. It was that you. Yes, if it's me on social media, I posted it. It wasn't my team or anybody else. It was
Right.
me. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong when people do it other ways, but for me, I want that authenticity. And because of my life and mistakes I've made in the past, I really want to make sure I'm demonstrating that transparency. And
Mm,
as a result, for me, again, I've chosen that I want to make sure that, especially when it comes to video, it's me. I mean, this morning, it's a great example. I'm in the process of recording a video sales letter for an upcoming training that I've got. It would have been much easier last week when I was in Nashville and Las
right.
Vegas to have my team use an AI avatar to create that. It didn't work
Yeah.
out because I wanted to be in my studio to do it. I didn't want to be out on the road. And so it would have been much easier to do, but I still don't believe it would have had that authenticity. And I've been very open about, for me, I'm not using that. So I don't want to change that just,
Mm.
haphazardly, so to speak.
Mm. And as you're saying this, Jonathan, it just really impresses me that you know your brand and you know your values driving the brand, and your brand is authenticity, and the guardrails of your brand are being able to maintain the utilization of AI tools to leverage and amplify, but not be an original source, like an origin source of the content creation
Hmm.
itself. So
Yeah.
in that regard, I think it really behooves each one of us to consider, well, what is my brand? How do I want people to feel when they're engaging with us? And so can you kind of talk a little bit about the work that you've done on the brand side to really understand, well, this is who I am and this is how I want to show up and what I want the audience to feel, that then can help others kind of cultivate their own personal brand and then have that be the thing that guides their decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, the big thing was we wanted to help both businesses and their teams learn to leverage AI. When I got into AI back in 2022, when ChatGPT released its graphical user interface for ChatGPT as we know it today, I was like, man, as an ADHD entrepreneur, this is an incredible tool. And I was able to get more done faster. And it made sense. It clicked with me very quickly. But I saw my team, they had a different perspective. They were concerned about it. They were hearing the fear mongers going, you're going to lose your job. It's going to take away things. You're not going to have anything to do. And I don't believe that to be the case for the vast majority of the jobs that are out there. I'm not going to say that a job's never going to be replaced by AI. But I really believe that the risk, if there is a risk to an employee, it's them being replaced by somebody else that has their skill and experience that's leveraging AI, not just AI itself. And so back to my core goal, I literally want to help 10 million people understand that. I want to help them embrace that AI as a tool that helps them do better, helps them deliver more, helps them serve their community, their employer, their family better than what they are right now. And so for me, it's about service and communication. And I feel as a result, I need to be very authentic in the way that I do that because it's Jonathan's perspective that I'm teaching. And I make no bones about it. Not everybody agrees with me, and that's okay. But I believe that this AI and this technological shift brings massive opportunity to us as individuals, whether we're entrepreneurs or team members or anywhere along that. It brings just tremendous opportunity. And instead of hiding under a rock and going, I'm just going to ignore it and see what happens. I have this desire, this passion to be leading that charge of telling people, whether it's a school teacher, whether it's an educator, whether it's an entrepreneur or just a team member, that AI is like when electricity came onto me. And before we had electricity, nobody could imagine what it would be like to have everything powered up. Just before our call, in fact, about 10 minutes before our call, all of a sudden my entire office went black. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? And yet I found out it wasn't a major power outage. It was just a circuit breaker, no problem. But
Right.
immediately everybody in my home here with my office and my family, they're like, the power's out, the power's out. We have become so dependent upon it, we don't even think about electricity anymore.
Mm,
And I believe AI is going to be very much like that over the next few years. It's going to be so ubiquitous that it's just going to be, no one would hire you today assuming that you'd never had a computer or never used a computer or you didn't have
right,
lights in your house. And
right.
yet, and I think that's where we're headed with AI. People are going to be expecting, whether again, as an employer, as an employee, as a student, as a teacher, wherever that fits in, they're going to expect that you're using the tools available to you to learn. It would be
Mm,
like a couple years ago, had somebody asked you to research something and you refused to use Google and the internet to do it.
yes.
Yeah,
I'd go to the
you could have went to the
library.
library and grabbed Encyclopedia Britannica, but it would have taken a long time and probably not been as reliable. That's where I think we're headed with AI. It's like, well, you can stick your head in the sand and go, I want to ignore AI. But by doing that, you're not adding value to those that you serve. And
Yes.
that's a bit, service to me is really important. Yes, I
Mm,
need to make money to pay my mortgage and that, but I want to serve others. And I believe that as an entrepreneur, if I
mm.
serve others well, then I'll be taken care of. I'll have what I need in life. And so my goal, really go back to your original question, I know I've strayed all over, welcome to my ADHD world,
I love
is
it.
transparency, authenticity, and service. I want to
Mhm.
serve people with transparency, with authenticity. And does that mean everybody's going to agree with me? No. Am I okay with that? Yeah, I know I live in the US, and believe it or not, I'm okay with people not agreeing with me, but I'm perfectly fine with that.
I love it. This is so good, Jonathan. Thank you so much. And I love that we just got a mini class in the future of AI. So I'm going to circle back to that because I think that this is really, really important. And that analogy you gave, man, it really is. It's these are tools that are available to us. And why would we try to write a paper without using the digital tools? It's the efficiency, it's the speed. It's also in terms of like, it's not just all about efficiency. And I think that that's something
Correct.
that's really important to lean into as well, is that as we're building the future and looking ahead at what's
Hmm.
coming next, it's fast, yes. And I keep hearing this. And frankly, I'd love to even lean into this. So maybe we'll just go in this direction right now and then come back to the brand conversation.
Sure.
I keep hearing that it really is the speed to execution, and it really is that's who's going to be set apart are the people who just do it imperfectly, get it out there. How would you advise people? So this does have to do a little bit with the brand. How do you maintain the integrity of your quality of standards as a business owner for your team? Yet also recognize that we just need to ship things and get things out the door. And a friend of mine even says, like, just hit a ton of golf balls rather than one really well. So
Yeah.
how do you kind of guide your team in that aspect of maintaining quality, but just getting things out the door?
Well, I'm probably going to ruffle a few feathers here. I think most people that struggle with getting things out the door, they struggle not because they're worried about their audience. They struggle because they're worried about themselves. They're worried
Mm,
about how people perceive them. I guess
wow.
maybe because I'm older, I don't want to say I don't care. I do care, but I'm not worried about what people think of me. In other words, I would rather ship something that provides value to my audience and know that 99% of my audience was going to find it valuable than wait to try to figure out how I could make 100% of the people do that. Because the reality is, when I wait to be perfect, I don't ship. I don't
Right.
provide value. And therefore, I'm not adding any value to my audience because I'm not doing anything. I am very much, and my team knows this, I use this phrase all the time. We are going to build the plane as it's taking off. We are
Yeah.
going to pick a direction. We're going to go that way. And all we need to know is the next step. I don't need to understand as I'm taking off how I'm going to land. I'll trust
Yeah.
based on my experience and everything else that when it's time to land the plane, we'll figure it out. But
Mm,
a lot of people I know go the other way and they're like, we got to figure everything out. And I get it. That's not my personality, but I get it. But I really believe for many of them, if they were to take a step back and be real with themselves, they would go, they're worried about that not because of what impact they're going to have on their audience. They're worried about that because they're worried it's going to have a negative impact on them. And I want to challenge everyone else, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a teacher or a student, messy success wins.
Love that.
Success loves speed to implementation, and just go with it. And if it's not perfect, go, okay, it wasn't perfect and we'll fix it. The key is if I launch something and it's not perfect, I can fix it. It's not a problem. And
Right.
that's
Right.
not a big deal. But if I wait until it's perfect, one, I may not even fix the right problems because what I consider an issue may not be what my audience does. And two, I'm never then going to be able to add value because I'm constantly going to be worried about refinement to make it perfect before I launch.
I love this. So first, the honest question of, are you actually not launching because of your own fear of how you're going to be perceived versus
Mm-hmm.
assigning blame on other people, like, oh, well, I just want to make it perfect for them. Whereas no, actually there's ego there. I think that that's
I
so
think so.
incredible. Yeah. And frankly, it's a good mirror for me too, because I know that I want to deliver something that is up to my own standards rather than it's for service. It's for the purpose of service that we execute. And I just really appreciate that reflection because I think all of us could use a reminder of that. And then you also made a comment that I think I want to double tap on that because it was really helpful. In launching, it surfaces the issues, the right issues, not the issues that we
Right.
perceive would happen, but it allows for real, true, iterative, real-time testing and thus optimization.
100%. And again, as long as you're honest with your audience about that, I've
Mm,
not found I have any issues with my audience. We often will launch it as a beta and tell people we're launching this as a beta. We've had an idea. We think we're close. We're going to launch it as a beta. Here's some benefits that you get. You get to be an early adopter. Maybe you get a discount, whatever the case is. And part of what we're asking for is your feedback. And
mhm.
audience, at least my audience, seems to love that. And I've never had anybody come back and go, oh, well, Jonathan, that wasn't perfect. And if they do, it's normally like, hey, we were reading the landing page and you guys messed up the landing page. You had the wrong name of the wrong course on there. And we're like, oops, we'll get it fixed, but they're like, oh, no worries. We know we're getting what we bought. So, things like that would have 20 years ago mortified me. And I would have never launched and with, oh my gosh, we failed. To me, I realized it was about me being worried about my ego and my versus serving others. And so again, everybody's got their own path, but I believe most of us, if we were really honest with ourselves, the reason that so many times we don't launch, it's because we are fearful of of that perception of us, not really fearful about what we're delivering to our clients.
Mm. I'd love to lean into your ability and your experience in reframing this element about failure. How did you reframe it? As you said, 20 years ago, you'd be mortified. Today, you're like, you're good. You're free. How did you go about
I failed miserably and massively on multiple occasions. And as a
it?
result, I went, well, hang on, if I did that and I got through it, then
Yeah.
I really can't fail much worse going forward. Just real quick for your audience, I failed so miserably 20 some years ago that I spent 3 years in prison.
Mm.
That's a massive failure. That's a
Yeah.
massive failure. And it was my failure. It wasn't anybody else's fault. It was my fault. It was a massive failure. I hung around with people I shouldn't have. I got caught up in what they did and I got in trouble as a result of it. You know
Mm.
what? I lived through it. I made it through it. It was an unpleasant experience. But now I know, okay, if I made it through that, and you know what? Life's been pretty good lately. We had some rough
Mm.
patches, but now it's not about me. It's not about that. And so again, probably just because I failed miserably, I realized that failure isn't the end. Failure is just a step in the process towards success. I
Mm.
made maybe some additional failures that I didn't need to because I was stupid, but but the point is they didn't define and they're not going to define who I am.
Mm, I'm so encouraged by this conversation, Jonathan. I just yesterday I was flying out of DCA and my dad and I had coffee beforehand and he was talking about just the ability and willingness to experience failure. And I know for my generation and the ones to come, it's just all about creating the safe and curated environments in which we can live. And frankly, even phones, it builds this false reality of how quick it
Hmm.
is to success. And a friend of mine, I believe his name's Chris Walker, he posts daily these stories of the folks who reached billionaire status, the people who frankly were rejected time and time and time and time again, and they literally never quit. And that type of resilience, I love how, frankly, you learned your resilience through actually having probably one of the worst things you could ever imagine happen, and then being like, oh, I survived. It wasn't pleasant, but I'm fine. So I wonder if that almost catastrophe question of like, what's the worst that could happen, envisioning that, and then being like, oh, well, it's not so bad if I do fail. Is there any other type of question or any other type of exercise that could really help folks to embrace and be willing to walk all the way through the process, because failure has steps along the way in that process?
I think, just through our entire socioeconomic system and the way we're trained that failure is a terrible thing. And I
Oh,
think it's just part of it's reframing it in our minds that failure is a step in the process. Failure due to negligence is one thing, and or stupidity, and I did some of that. But the other part of it is then understanding that failure is part of any walk, whether we're talking about a relationship. The first girl that I had puppy love for back in school isn't the one I ended up marrying. So I guess that was a failure because it didn't work. I've definitely bombed tests in school before. I've gotten fired from a job before. So I've failed in many different ways, and I could go on and on. That would bore everybody. But each one of those failures taught me a lesson. And I think as anybody listening, if they can just reframe that failure is not permanent, failure is a temporary condition that should be a lesson that teaches you something. And if it is, then that failure was likely worth it because it allowed you to become who you needed to be in order to serve others better.
I love this. There was a study that was done where the participants were asked, if you could switch lives with someone, who would you switch lives with? And almost, I forget what percentage, but I believe it was over 90%. After really thinking about it, we're like, no, I would have my life. People really,
Hmm.
when we really sit with the beauty of our lives, it's like, oh no, I actually wouldn't trade any of the regrets, any of the failures, anything that has happened, because I actually love
Exactly.
living. And those failures, to your point, are a step in the process. We wouldn't be who we are today. There's this country song that I like, and it says, thank God for unanswered prayers.
Mm.
I think it really lends nicely to what you're saying. So thank you for this. So a reframe of failure in and of itself. It's a temporary moment. It's not permanent fixture.
Yeah, to me, it's much like I heard many years ago that being broke is a temporary condition, being poor is a state of mind, and in my mind, failing is a temporary condition. Being a failure is a state of mind, but failing is a temporary condition.
That's so good. That's so good. I think it warrants us to really lean into the meaning of the word in our minds, because we hold so much subconscious attachment to these words. And even, there was a client I was working with, and we were moving through the known founder, and we were talking about this role of him stepping into the role of the king. But there was just so much aversion that he had to, something that would seem glorious and ostentatious and exciting. But I said, who do you associate king with, that role with? And he was like, well, this person in my life who really hurt me and that I actually don't have any respect for. But he was the
Mm,
pinnacle. He was the person. And so when we think about failure, it's okay. Do we think of Edison? Do we think of these folks who, Elon Musk, all the failures that they moved through to
mhm.
get to the status that they have today? Or do we assign the people that we actually really just don't respect and frankly don't want anything to be
Yeah,
like? Because then of course your subconscious is going to be weaning us away from moving into that. So I
right.
really think that that's
Absolutely.
like conscious narratives associated. You said the messy success loves speed to implementation, which I absolutely love. Let's talk. Let's get back to the whole brand conversation and
Sure.
the execution of. So we don't want to use, unless that's right for your brand, but we're not using AI to replace you for the purpose of authenticity, because people want to do business with people. I'm so there with you, Jonathan.
Exactly.
People,
Yes.
they need to feel you, see you, sense you. So then what are those ways that you're leveraging AI? You talked about, in that moment in that mastermind, you took that little phrase that you're like, oh, I want to build content on this. You had your Google Docs set up with Gemini in there, and you were able to instantly spit out a couple of posts. Can you talk about how folks can, like, that's just a very easy step for all of us to implement. So how do we go about customizing our Gemini in our Google documents?
Yeah, so that's a great one. I created what's called a Google Gem, which basically means it's trained, and I've provided it with training data. And I gave it some of what I thought were my best posts, the posts that I go, this is what represents Jonathan. This is how I want to come across. And I had it learn from that and basically say, take these, and I think I gave it about 50 different posts. Take these, analyze what's consistent among them, and help me create basically a framework to recreate posts that are like these. It did that, and then I had essentially Jonathan's social media framework, and then I provided it with information on my tone and my style and my personality, because when it creates content, I want it to sound like me, good, bad, or indifferent. And I basically melded those two together, and then I gave it the instruction, and I said, I'm going to give you a concept or a statement or a quote, and I want you to take that, I want you to research it, then I want you to create a social media post based upon that framework, and I want you to write it in Jonathan's tone and style. It's literally that easy. I mean, yes, it probably took me 30 minutes to set up, but going through that, now I can go back to that gem anytime that I want to, and I can literally type in a concept. Earlier, you were talking about someone that shares how people have failed and then succeeded later in life. And I was thinking of particularly Kentucky Fried Chicken. When Colonel Sanders went out, he started in his 60s, I believe it was, when he actually started selling it. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know a lot of people told him to go pound sand. They weren't interested before he finally, I believe when he was around 70, got somebody to buy his chicken recipe, and it became Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Wow.
And so, I'm thinking to myself, oh, I got to remember that. And I'll go into my gem and I'll type, what lessons can we learn about from Colonel Sanders' process? And it will then research it and come back, and it will give me 5 different posts with different, taglines and all that I all set up the way I want. Now, all I have to do is look at them and go, oh, I like this one. And some people go, well, Jonathan, that's not you. No, but it is me, because it's my framework. It's my idea. I'm just not taking the time to sit down with pen and paper and go, okay, let's see, I'm going to Google Colonel Sanders. And okay, it was actually at 63. And then he did this. It was 743. I'm making that number up. It was 743 times that he was told no. And then I'll write a post about it, because the reality is life is too busy for me to do that every time I have that idea. So I post 10 to 20 times a day. It's part of what I do. That's part of my job. It's where I'm at. I would have a hard time posting once a day if I had to do all the research and writing myself.
Yeah.
And as long as my audience tells me they're getting value out of what I'm posting, and I hear that consistently, then I know I'm on target, and that's okay. If my audience started telling me, hang on, Jonathan, this isn't relevant anymore, I'd need to make adjustments accordingly. But again, that's based on my desire, which is to serve others. Not everybody has that same exact desire, but I do think all of us in business or in work and in life, what better goal can we have than to serve others through the skills and the talents that God's blessed us with and that we've decided to lean into.
I love it. And Jonathan, you just said you're posting 10 to 20 times a day, which I actually don't think I know anyone who's doing that volume. So can you talk about the genesis? I believe you have over 100,000 followers on Facebook. Is that correct? Am I right there?
So yeah, on my personal profile, it's got about 80,000 followers, and then I've got a group that's got 460,000 in it. So we've got generally over 500,000 people that I'm reaching out to on a day-to-day basis from that, and that all was built. Every bit of it was built, other than maybe the 50 people that I actually know on my friends list. All of it was built by putting out helpful content that added value to others, and they started following me back. My entire business and my team, and we've got a team of 9 people that we support, 9 families that are involved. It all exists because we're adding value to our audience. That doesn't mean everybody loves us, and I want to be really clear about that. A lot of people are like, well, but so-and-so didn't like what I posted. Okay, so what? be authentic, know who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, and occasionally the trolls will punch you, and that's okay.
I really, really appreciate this. So, Jonathan, for someone who has a host of content in terms of, let's say, old videos, old podcasts, and frankly, when I was speaking on this panel last week, we've got, for a lot of folks who have, they're part of organizations. So talking about it from the organizational perspective, but also the individual, if you've got the old blog posts, if you've got old content, where do I love what you were saying in terms of creating the custom gem, or the Google gem. I think that that's such a good place. How do we know the frequency that we should be starting at? Is it, let's start with once a day? Should you just say, just dive in? If you've got the content, use the Google gem, post 2 to 3 times a day. Like, what would you say, where to start for folks?
I think everybody, when they start trying to figure out how to do that, especially on social media, they worry about something that's not a reality, and that's it. They might post too much. People are like, but if I post 20 times a day, people are going to get sick of me. Not if your content's good. They won't.
Right.
And again, as long as, and again, it's for your audience that you're pitching to. I'm not pitching to college professors as an example. I doubt that I have a couple that I know of, but only because I make occasional educational posts and they comment. But I have very few college professors that are following me online. That's okay. That's not my audience. That's not who I'm trying to reach. And if you get out there, get past that, oh, I can post too much. I talked to somebody literally last week and they're like, well, I was told if I post more than once a week that I'll alienate my audience. And I'm like, how would you alienate your audience if what you're doing is providing value to them?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I guess that makes sense. Gary Vaynerchuk probably said it best. I don't listen to a ton of what Gary says, but I like him. And he said, if you're having success at once a day posting, what would happen if you posted 3 times a day? Or 10 times a day? You'll have triple to 10 times that success. And I can speak for that. If very few people see all 10 to 20 posts that I do in a day, I'm probably the only person that sees all of them. Everybody else will see them here and there, and they'll see 1 or 2 things that I posted that day. And that's important to keep in mind as a content creator, as an entrepreneur, as a person wanting to make an influence. All the social media platforms, any blogging, writing, whatever we're doing online, people aren't going to see everything you do. They're only going to see as part of it. So you need to ramp that up so that they see more of it. Because if I only posted once a week, that means that most people would probably only see content from me about once a quarter. That's not enough to build a reputation. It's not enough to become that go-to expert. If I do it 10 times a day, most people probably see 1 thing a day from me. Well, now I can begin to move into that subject matter expert and earn their trust, which is what I want to do.
Right. So good. Okay. So really it's just almost, can we say, start duplicating your efforts, 3x your efforts?
You asked, I didn't ever answer your question, and I apologize, Christine. The answer for me is start at 3 times a day. If you're not posting 3 times a day, work up to 3 times a day. And as soon as you get to 3 times a day, make it 4. And then the next week, work on 5. I didn't start off posting 20 times a day, and I don't post 20 times every day, but it's a rare day that I'm not posting at least 10 times.
And do you schedule out these posts? Like, they're created? Are you posting? How much are you posting in real time versus scheduling out?
99% of it's in real time, just because of the way that my ADHD brain works. There's nothing wrong with scheduling them out. But I'm very much in the moment. It's, I had an idea. I'm going to act on that idea. I'm going to do that. So very little of mine is actually scheduled. And that's a my personality thing versus a best practice.
Okay, wonderful. I love that. Jonathan, I think that this is so actionable, the Google gem that you gave, and then also, honestly, just starting to post 3 times a day, that is huge. And so for folks who are creating content, I think another one is, well, what's the balance of the call to action? How do I know what my call to action should be? Then it's like the whole offer problem. And I actually heard people say this, and I don't agree with it. So I'm curious if you do agree with it. I've heard people say, don't create content until you have your offer. I completely disagree, because I think it's never too soon to start building relationship and building trust and just getting your brand out there and start serving. What is your take on that?
Well, let me posit a story. Let's just say, for example, that I was an expert plumber and my neighbor had a water leak, but I didn't
Mm,
have an offer to sell him. Should I just
yeah.
watch my neighbor with his water leak and not go to help him? Of course not. I should help him. So if you
Yeah.
can add value to somebody, go add value. Yes,
Mm,
you need an offer, and if you want to do that, but if you're not sure, maybe maybe somebody listening to the podcast today or watching this live is going, "Hey, I've got a job, I'm working, I don't have a business, I'm passionate about weight loss." Great,
yeah.
then go add value related to what you've learned and what you know about weight loss. And at some point, if you decide that, my goodness, all of a sudden I woke up 6 months later and I had 20,000 people following me every day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time now we put together an offer. When I
Yes.
built my AI group, I didn't make a single sales offer to them for almost 12 months. We had hit
Mm,
50,000 people in our group before I did that. And I did that purposefully. I wanted to make sure that I built the trust. I didn't want them to see a lot of sales pitches. Even today, when we make sales pitches, and we do, it's our business, we sell training and masterminds and things like that. So that's what we do. But even now when we do it, we sell by adding value. So when we make a social media post, rarely is it, "Hey, this is a training, take my training." Once in a while. But the vast majority of the time, it's, if you knew these things, here's what it could mean for your business. And by the way, here's 3 parts of that. If
mm,
this resonates with you and you'd like to learn more, I'm doing a training and you're welcome to participate. But we want that post to add value and be able to stand on its own.
on its
That
own.
that email, whatever it is, I'm talking a lot about social media. We do more than that. But that video, that email, that social post, I want it to be able to stand on its own, that you could get it and go, "Wow, that was valuable." And oh yeah,
Yes.
by the way, he mentioned there was a training he was doing, but I don't want to lead with that training, because the reality is very few people care what I'm selling. And they
Mhm.
shouldn't. They should only care what makes sense to them and what's going to resonate with them. So I need to add value first. So my recommendation, if you need a guide, 9 value posts to 1 promotional post. In other words, 1 in 10 should be the most that you do for promotional. And I would challenge you to go a step further and not actually do any purely promotional posts, but do value-based posts that then have a PS on them that is, "By the way, if this resonated with you, take a look at this."
Yes, good. That was gonna be a question I was gonna ask about the PS, because I like the PS. It's not as pushy, and it's just kind of always there at the base of it. If you
Hmm.
are interested, here's how. Um, the next question, and I'm mindful of time. So, do you have time for one more
Yeah,
question?
go ahead. Yeah.
The community side, where you're talking about, you went for almost 12 months having 50,000 people in your community without really selling. How did you get started in that process? It's so impressive. And
Mm,
frankly, I just know that there's so much value in community, especially in this AI world. People are craving connection than
they are.
ever before. So how did you get that started?
Well, it really goes back to our speed to implementation discussion we had earlier. I had, when ChatGPT added the graphical user interfaces, I think I shared, I loved it. Being an AD entrepreneur, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." But my team was like, "Ooh, I'm hearing people tell me I might lose my job." And
Yeah.
I woke up one Saturday morning and I asked my wife what we were doing that day. And I remember I was sitting there in my comfy chair in front of the TV, and she said, "We don't have any plans today. Whatever is on your mind." And that's a really rare thing around the Mast household to have that happen. And so I thought, you know what? I think today'd be a good day to start a Facebook group. It was literally that. And so I thought
I
I should start
love
a
it.
Facebook group about all this AI stuff. And then I just began posting. Now, to your earlier point, I didn't have an offer. I was actually running a digital marketing agency when I started the group. We used AI to provide services, but we didn't sell anything related. We didn't do any training, none of that. I just wanted to raise awareness. We then did that, and over the course of the next year, I decided to leave the agency and start doing training. But that happened not because I was selling it. It happened because people would reach out from seeing the content and the video and the reels and all that I was doing, all trying to add value, and would go, "Hey, Jonathan, our business is struggling with this. Could you talk to us, or could you come work with us?" And I got some of my largest clients that way, simply because they saw my content. It was authentic, it was transparent, and they reached out and said, "Hey, Jonathan, we want to work with you." that's really how we got started. I'd love to say it was well planned and we put this business plan together and we had everything scoped out. No, I literally, I mean, a couple hours later, my wife's like, "What have you been working on?" I'm like, "Oh, I just started a new Facebook group." She goes, "Oh, okay, great. How long are you going to do that?" And I go, "I don't know."
We'll see.
And so but had I not done it that Saturday, I'm sure that I would have gotten busy on Sunday or Monday and it would have never happened. And my life would be very different today had I not just decided to take off on that plane and build it while we were taking off.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you said earlier that I really appreciate, it's, if you are in a 9 to 5 job, this isn't necessarily for an entrepreneur, but it also could be. Maybe you've got another
Yeah,
business, but you really love health and fitness. One of the things that I found to work, like truly work and resonate and make impact and have real results is when you start solving for your own problem. People
absolutely.
light up. They're drawn to you. They hear the passion in your voice. And then most often there's a service opportunity within how you have solved for your problem. Now you can go do it for other people. Even if it's something personal, that's where some of the best businesses have been born. And so I just love that it's the following your passion. It's the following your own problems. Like solve for your problems. If you don't like something in your life, freaking figure it out and then create content around it. And how many other people are going to resonate with you in that way?
Yeah, absolutely 100%. And people love stories and most of what I've done with AI has been just that. I'm sharing here's how I'm using it. Here's what I learned. And if it impacted you, chances are it's going to impact thousands of others as well.
So good. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today. I really, this was so action oriented. So is there one last thing you'd like to say in terms of an action someone needs to take in order to really alchemize AI for either building content or building a community?
Just remember that AI is a tool. If you were a roofer, I give this example all the time, you would no longer in 2025 be getting on a roof with a hammer and nails to attach shingles to. You would be up there with a pneumatic nailer that you could tap and it would just automatically put the nails in for you. AI is that pneumatic nailer as compared to the hammer. Use it. It's a tool to leverage and amplify your skill and experience. It is something that allows you to serve others
Mm,
more fully.
mm,
Lean into it.
lean into it. Jonathan, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your wisdom, for your time today. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.